When most people envision a post-apocalypse, they picture an entirely dystopian future. Dirty, emaciated survivors fight over the leftovers of a bygone era, eking out an existence in the wreckage of a once great society. The world of Horizon tells a different story. In these games, we see a lush vision of the post-apocalypse, roughly 300 years after a global extinction event. The world we know is gone, but there is new life, and a new beginning for our species. The ghostly ruins of civilization still haunt the landscape, but most have been entirely reclaimed by the Earth. Thanks to the efforts of a few brave scientists, the human race managed to survive, but only barely. Animal life, however, didn't fare as well. While a few small species did survive, the ecological niches once occupied by avians, ungulates, and predators have been filled by wild, animalistic machines, fully independent and, in a way, even capable of reproducing. Today, we'll examine how these machines evolved to fill these roles, as well as how a fully synthetic machine can nearly perfectly mimic nature through a concept known as biomimetic design. Then we'll take a look at a few specific examples of Horizon's complex, bio-robotic creatures in more detail. Can advanced machinery provide a lesson in speculative biology? Well, grab your favorite potato-based snack, sit back and relax as we explore the post-apocalyptic world of Horizon. After a long night spent battling machines for your very survival, sometimes you just need a good nap. The problem is that infernal sun blasting bright light into your closed eyes, preventing any semblance of restful sleep. Fortunately for us, dear traveler, unlike those poor souls in the distant future, we can do something about it. Manta masks are the best sleep masks in any timeline. Need to sleep in a brightly lit room? Manta masks block out 100% of the light from your surroundings, and with an extremely comfortable, form-fitting style that doesn't press into your sensitive eyelids. Listen, I always thought that sleep masks were a gimmick. The ones I knew about were flimsy, too tight, and at best were like putting a piece of paper over my eyes. This Manta mask changed my mind completely. I live in an apartment with city lights that blast through the windows, so I'm not kidding when I say that I wear this every single night. I even keep it in my backpack so I can sneak naps at my day job. The eye covers are adjustable and super soft. They come in multiple styles like weighted, warming, aroma, silk, and even a pro version. All I can say is this: never discount the power of a good night's sleep and how much total darkness helps with that. So how about you join the pro nap movement? Use code ThoughtPotato during checkout at mantasleep.com for a sweet discount, or click that link in the description. In the near future, as the catastrophic effects of climate change take their toll on our planet, millions of displaced people find themselves as refugees in increasingly overpopulated cities. Governments across the world are struggling to distribute resources and maintain order. In the year 2040, some of the world's greatest minds began to diligently seek out a solution to Earth's rapidly deteriorating situation. Two of these great minds belong to Dr. Elizabeth Sobek, a genius robotics specialist, and Ted Faro, the CEO of a tech powerhouse known as Faro Automated Solutions. Though it wasn't known at the time, these two people would forever shape the future of the planet and of humanity. Initially, Ted Faro seemed passionate about solving the climate crisis through green energy and AI solutions, but by 2048, his attention had turned to a much more lucrative field: automated military robotics. Thus was born the Chariot line of combat automatons, the single most advanced combat platform in military history. This venture was an overwhelming success as governments and corporations around the world, still struggling with uprisings and crime, clamored to adopt this extraordinarily efficient solution. Dr. Sobek was not on board with Faro's new direction, and in 2049 left to found her own company. Needless to say, that didn't stop Ted Faro from proceeding, and by 2055, even two of the largest military forces in the world, the UK and the US, had been entirely replaced by Faro's automated army. These robots were given a suite of innovative technologies: machine learning and AI adaptability, and the ability to use biomass as fuel when necessary, and even to replicate themselves. But it was their extraordinarily difficult to hack systems that would ultimately catapult the Chariot automatons to success and become humanity's downfall. In 2062, a privately owned fleet of Chariot machines experienced an event Faro would later call simply a glitch. This event caused the entire fleet to completely disengage from their programming. This fleet included a Horus unit, which is fully capable of producing new machines at will. Coupled with their ability to use biomass as fuel, this fleet, soon to be dubbed the Faro Swarm, began to completely obliterate the region, including humans. Unfortunately, the same invulnerability to hackers that made these robots so impermeable also made it completely impossible for their manufacturers to regain control. In his hubris, Ted Faro had instructed his engineers to omit a backdoor, citing security concerns. Gaining control via brute force was possible, but it would take decades. In desperation, Ted Faro reached out to Dr. Elizabeth Sobeck, his former co-worker, for help. Alarmingly, she calculated that given their current rate of destruction, the Faro swarm would completely consume all of Earth's biomass within a mere 15 months. At this point, there was no hope to quell the swarm. Humanity would be overrun. In an effort to give the human race a chance at rebirth, Dr. Sobeck formed Project Zero Dawn, an initiative designed to terraform and repopulate the Earth after the swarm consumed the planet and went dormant. At the forefront of this project was an extraordinarily advanced AI called Gaia, who, once humanity is long gone, will be tasked with infiltrating and shutting down the dormant chariot swarm, as well as producing machines to restore Earth's water, land, and atmosphere. Finally, Gaia will foster human embryos to repopulate the planet. By late 2066, the last human military forces were overrun and entirely destroyed. The sole point of comfort is that Project Zero Dawn was a success, and Gaia was installed in a secret underground bunker, ready to begin working when the time comes. Eventually, the Faro swarm did annihilate all life on the planet, before finally going dormant. It would be 50 years before Gaia could crack the swarm's defenses and deactivate them, and 200 years before terraforming was complete, making it habitable again. At long last, humanity was reintroduced to the planet. For a time, the machines built by Gaia roamed the Earth, integrating with and restoring the environment and filling various biological niches. But then, early in the 30th century, a signal of unknown origin caused these peaceful machines to be altered, making them single-mindedly hostile to the tribes of humans that had formed cultures across the continent. Worse, a rogue AI managed to produce new machines specifically designed to eradicate humans, though unlike the Faro swarm, these machines usually lacked the aggressive weaponry. Instead, they seemed to mimic biological organisms from the now old world. The humans that populated the world at the time of this broadcast refer to it simply as the derangement. While there are many more nuances to this story, for our purposes, this brings us up to the beginning of the events of Horizon Zero Dawn. In this new world, rogue machines roam the lush countryside, consuming plant and what little animal life remains, though this time in a way that the ecosystem can support. In many ways, these robots are identical to the larger animals that once populated the Earth. But why is that? Why would machine design mimic organic functions? And is it possible for a synthetic life form to completely usurp the roles once held by living creatures? Well, even though our technology is certainly nowhere near what's shown in the game, the idea isn't too far-fetched. When it comes to designing efficient systems, even now, many manufacturers have begun to turn to nature for inspiration. In 2005, for example, Mercedes-Benz debuted the Bionic, a vehicle directly modeled after the yellow boxfish. Interestingly, despite its boxy appearance, the drag of this body shape is surprisingly low, while at the same time providing great structural support. Though this car never came to production, the Bionic had one of the lowest drag coefficients of any vehicle at the time, making it very aerodynamic, much like the yellow boxfish itself. Another example comes from one of the leading experts in biomechanics, Dr. Frank Fish of West Chester University. As he observed the front flippers of the humpback whale, he noticed that there were multiple bumps on the flipper's leading edges. This made little sense to Dr. Fish, as general concepts and fluid dynamics indicate that the most efficient way for a fin to cut through both air and water is a completely smooth edge. As it turned out though, these tubercles gave the whales a steeper angle of attack, which is the angle between the flow of water and the face of the flipper. In fact, thanks to sectional stalls that occur along these ridges, the attack angle can be 40% steeper than a smooth flipper, making them more efficient and far less likely to stall while swimming. Eventually, Dr. Fish would take these observations and apply them to wind turbines. In fact, an MIT study found that these biomimetic blades help generate the same amount of power at 10 miles per hour that conventional turbines generate at 17 miles per hour. This not only makes the blades more energy efficient, but also safer and longer lasting. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Biomimetic designs have been incorporated into many forms of engineering, from bullet trains to Velcro to architecture. The basic thesis behind these designs is simple. Why improve upon something that's working so well for nature? Even now, cutting-edge robots pull direct inspiration from nature. After all, quadrupedal animals move easily across rough terrain in an energy-conserving way and provide great advantages over other forms of locomotion such as wheels. Pneumatic versions of organic muscles are just as effective in manipulating joints and appendages, and even stronger, though as with many examples we've seen so far, our current technology isn't quite at Horizon's level. Yet. The future of robotics appears to be convergently evolving into shapes we see in nature, and it's the culmination of this trend that we see throughout Horizon Zero Dawn and its sequel, though in the game's advanced future this trend doesn't just apply to the machine's structure, but their intelligence as well. After all, part of what made the Chariot line so effective was their mimicry of natural systems. These robots utilize the concept of insect swarms in their operation. A single queen robot, the Horus, produced overwhelming numbers of soldier/worker robots, which were the troops that eventually consumed the world as we know it. Horizon's synthetic creatures may look similar to the creatures we know, but as we've seen, biomimetic design is about much more than simply copying organic morphology. In the natural world, a creature's environmental niche drives its design, and the same is true of machines. Predators in this world are built for speed and camouflage. Water-dwelling robots are streamlined and possess paddle-like appendages. Grazers can convert grass into biofuel, but lack defensive capabilities and so must be fast and agile. But for Horizon's machines, the most overt evolution occurs when a machine is killed. After game characters hunt and destroy them, other members of the robotic species will eventually exhibit additional plates of armor, algorithmically generated to better guard against attack. In-game, these machines are produced in just a few lingering facilities run entirely by AI. As a result, these robots are able to adapt to nearly any condition, including increased predation. This adaptability extends to the machine's behavior as well. If they are often killed in traps, for example, the species as a whole will begin to avoid traps altogether. While this AI keeps gameplay interesting for the player, in some ways it also mirrors the natural behaviors of animal life we see today. In the wild, social learning is crucial to the survival of a group of animals and to the entire species. Through social learning, individuals are able to observe outcomes and adapt in ways that give them a better chance for survival. In Australia, for example, researchers found that betongs were not recognizing foxes and wild cats as predators, and as a result, their numbers were dwindling. These predators were introduced relatively recently, and so the betong species had not developed the intrinsic fear necessary for their survival. Researchers placed two separate groups of betongs in neighboring enclosures and then allowed wild cats to enter the second. Sadly, though unsurprisingly, a few betongs in that enclosure did not survive. The study did find, however, that the first betong group exhibited increased wariness of cats from that moment forward, giving hope that the greater population can learn to avoid these invasive predators and proving the effectiveness of social learning. Now, dear traveler, we've seen how machines and AI can mimic organisms and their behaviors with great success, even becoming fully autonomous as a result. Next, we'll begin to move into the niches that these machines fill. As part of her effort to terraform the Earth after the Pharaoh swarm had annihilated it, the AI called Gaia needed to create machines with specific functions. As you might have guessed, these machines are classified by these primary functions, making up 5 main classes. First is the acquisition class, which makes up the bulk of Gaia's workforce. These machines harvest the resources necessary to complete the terraforming program and allow for the further construction of more machines. Next is the combat class, which didn't exist prior to the derangement. Once that mysterious signal corrupted the previously peaceful machine systems, the world of Horizon was populated by robots with weapons and fearsome attacks, a first for any of Gaia's offspring. Next is the communication class, which contains only a single member. We'll return to them in a moment. Next is the recon class. The machines in this classification are relatively simple and usually built around a single advanced detection component, such as an ocular sensor or radar. They originally served to assist acquisition class machines in finding suitable areas for terraforming. After the derangement, though, they became sentries for other machines. Finally, there's the transport class. Though the species in this class are extremely diverse, they all served a similar function, to move large amounts of cargo, especially for acquisition class machines, to aid in their terraforming efforts. At this point, dear traveler, we have enough of a background to begin looking at a few of these machine species in a bit more detail. We'll see just how similar some of these robotic creatures are to their natural counterparts, and by looking into this fictional future, maybe we'll come away with a greater understanding of the present. Watchers are the first automaton you'll encounter in the first game, and with good reason. They were the first to be designed. In-game, they function almost like walking alarm bells, serving to alert any nearby machines of human presence. Both the developers and artists of Horizon took great care in the Watcher's behavioral design. A machine that acts as a sentry, after all, needs to be on alert, but with a recognizable pattern. In order to be effective in their role, they also needed to be both skittish and inquisitive. As a result, much inspiration was pulled from sentinel behavior in the animal kingdom. In meerkat colonies, for example, the sentry position is vital to the survival of the group. The individual who assumes this role must be on high alert at all times, ready to warn the colony of an impending attack from both the ground and the sky. This cooperative behavior is found in the watchers as well. They are often found around herds of other machines, sounding an alarm if any danger is perceived. This allows the majority of the robotic creatures to retreat, ensuring their safety. Interestingly, for many years, sentinel behavior was thought to be an example of altruism in nature, but more recently, one study found that essentially an individual may simply fill the role of sentry if they have nothing better to do. The Watcher's physiology lends well to its role as a recon class machine. Its long, snake-like body seems to almost perch atop two simple legs. This bipedal stance allows it to take in a greater view of its surroundings, identical to the behavior of a prairie dog, for example. But when it comes to achieving a greater field of view, no machine in the game achieves it better than our next species. At first glance, it may seem like the Tallneck is modeled after a sauropod dinosaur. In reality, though, it is more directly based on a giraffe, right down to its walking pattern. Giraffes are unique among most mammals in that instead of raising legs on opposite sides of their body as they take a step, they lift both legs on one side at the same time. Tallnecks, though much larger than real-life giraffes, have adopted this same gait. Thanks to their enormous size, tallnecks also possess exceptionally wide feet split down the middle, much like a giraffe's cloven hooves. In-game, tallnecks are the only member of the communications class, which serves to map the landscape from as high a vantage point as possible. This allows them to pass along the locations of resources to other machines, though of course overriding a tallneck's programming can also illuminate parts of the map for the player. Fortunately, these gigantic machines seem unaffected by the derangement and pose no danger to humans. Otherwise, given their size, they could easily cause immense damage to settlements across the land. The morphology of the tallneck is a direct result of its function. Its head is a broad disc that can even gauge weather patterns, while the spines along their necks function as antennas. Their size, coupled with large, strategically placed plates of armor, make the tallneck a nearly invincible machine. Now, though, we'll turn our attention to something decidedly smaller, though in the world of Horizon, the term smaller is entirely relative. As you walk across the snowy alpine fields that dot Horizon's mountainsides, you're likely to come across a Lancehorn herd or two, most of them with their heads down, thrusting two large horn-like drill bits directly into the ground. These acquisition-class machines are designed to harvest minerals and other resources from the soil, storing them for use in the production of additional machines. In the world of Horizon, the Lancehorns fill a niche very similar to large savanna-dwelling antelopes. Specifically, it appears that their drill bit horns are modeled after a species much like the giant eland, the world's largest antelope. These African ungulates stand nearly 10 feet tall, can weigh upwards of a ton, and possess large spiral-shaped horns. Some might even say that they resemble drill bits. Like the eland, Lancehorns travel in herds, likely preferring the resource-gathering efficiency of numbers as much as the safety they provide. Generally, Lancehorns prefer to flee any perceived danger, but if cornered, they will kick with their rear legs or charge with their horns first, dealing deadly damage in the process. Elands attack in a similar fashion, and their horns can be just as devastating. In 2015, a zoo in Norway was the site of a tragic loss when an eland gored a giraffe to death in front of dozens of horrified onlookers. Like elands, the Lancehorn possesses a muscle-heavy neck and forelimbs, which give it a deeply intimidating appearance. Take care not to corner one of these creatures, machine or biological, and you'll probably be alright. But Lancehorns aren't the only machines that prefer to travel in groups, though rather than herds, our next species often travels in packs. By the way, if you love learning about Horizon's fascinating take on biomimetic design, be sure to check out my Patreon where you can find an extended version of this very video with more species covered in detail. For now though, we'll be moving on, from the alpine grasslands to the dense forest, where a new species can be found leaping among the trees. Like their organic simian counterparts, Clamberjaws are often found leaping among the trees or traveling in groups along the forest floor, searching for scrap to salvage. Most likely, the Clamberjaw was modeled after a baboon or a mandrill. It possesses large, grasping hands and feet and short, powerful legs that act like pistons, allowing them to leap great distances. As acquisition-class machines, this compact body plan is perfect for reaching high places other machines would struggle with, while also making them fast and agile climbers. But the Clamberjaws lifted another, much more intimidating piece of primate anatomy, crushing jaws lined with huge menacing teeth. While enormous canines are certainly found in a variety of living primates, in our world, it seems that their primary use is for sexual display, serving a dual purpose. Females are impressed by large canines, while smaller males will steer clear of the threat. While they have no need to mate, there's little doubt that the Clamberjaw's reinforced metal teeth can make quick work of metal salvage, cutting it into smaller, more manageable segments for transportation. And of course, when the Clamberjaw encounters a human, those teeth can make for devastating weapons. The Clamberjaw also possesses a few unique traits. Their tail, for example, terminates in a large apparatus that allows them to disperse a harmful chemical. They also have a mask of sorts, which simultaneously enhances their vision when searching for scrap and protects their visual receptors. When not in searching mode, this mask can be retracted for a greater field of view. So far, we've seen that many of Horizon's machines have analogous organisms that currently exist in our own world. But of course, many more of these machines are modeled after extinct species. To understand the next few examples, we'll have to travel back in time. With just a glance at the Sawtooth, it's clear which organism they're modeled after. In the world of Horizon, it appears that these combat-class machines went into production some time after the derangement. As such, they're built for killing, and throughout history, no mammal was better at that than saber-toothed cats. Specifically, it appears that the Sawtooth takes direct inspiration from Smilodon fatalis, a large apex predator that roamed North America just a few thousand short years ago. The similarities between organism and machine are clear. A stocky chassis with powerful limbs terminating in sharp claws, and of course, two very large canine teeth that jut downward from the upper jaw. Of course, there is a small distinction in tooth design to be found here. The machine's teeth are serrated, hence their name. The Sawtooth also mimics the Smilodon's muscle-dense neck and shoulders, which are more important than you might think. Perhaps surprisingly, scientists believe that Smilodon had a relatively weak bite force. Instead of relying on strong jaws to kill their prey, they used their powerful neck to wield their oversized teeth like daggers, stabbing them directly into the vital parts of their unfortunate victims. This method of hunting likely means that Smilodon was an ambush hunter, utilizing stealth to approach their prey before leaping at them with full force, their teeth angled directly at the neck. In Horizon, Sawtooths have little need to ambush, as they are usually found guarding terraforming machines, often relying on the seemingly ever-present watchers to signal any incoming attack. Interestingly, when most people think of saber-toothed animals, they usually think of a Smilodon, but there have been many saber-toothed animals found in the fossil record. Most of these unique creatures have been extinct for a long time, but even today we see similar dentition in the musk deer and walrus. Though obviously neither of them quite fit the traditional predator archetype. For that, we can look to the clouded leopard. Though their teeth don't protrude from their mouth like a Smilodon's, they do have the largest canines compared to their skull size of any living cat. Not only that, but they can also open their mouths to nearly 90 degrees, an ability once thought unique to saber cats. So while we may never see a living Smilodon, in a way, we can come close. For people in the distant future of Horizon, there is certainly a connection with the past, because even though this new feline is a machine, humans are once again finding themselves fighting against a saber-toothed beast. For anyone who ventures deep into the South American jungle, it's hard to shake the feeling that you are no longer at the top of the food chain. Jaguars stalk the thick forests, so stealthy that you'd likely never see an attack coming. But if you were to travel to South America in the Cenozoic era, you'd find a very different landscape and a very different kind of apex predator. 10-foot-tall carnivorous birds roamed the savanna, equipped with sharp, hooked beaks that could make quick work of just about anything. These avian beasts couldn't fly, but they could run at nearly 30 miles per hour. With all of these fearsome features, it's no wonder that they're also known as terror birds. And with its speed and power, it's also no wonder that this was the body plan bestowed upon the Longleg, a recon-class machine designed for observation and exploration. Its small wings may be flightless, but they are made up of 3 engines that allow for enhanced maneuverability. But after the derangement, the Longleg also made the perfect combat machine. Now it guards other machines with extreme aggression, and it has many methods of attack. While many modern interpretations of terror bird behavior shows them attacking with their large beaks, the designers of the Longleg thought a little differently. They observed the attack patterns of roosters. As any chicken owner can tell you, roosters attack feet first, using their wings to give them lift, and digging into their victims with spurs, sharp, horn-like bones that jut out from the back of their legs. The Longleg design took great inspiration from this method of attack, pairing it with the beak-first pattern that the terror bird also likely employed, essentially making them twice as deadly. And like the terror bird, the Longleg's neck is packed with synthetic muscles, which not only gives its attack its mortal power, it also supports the weight of the head. This was especially important for their real-life equivalents, since their enormous beaks made them very top-heavy. Now, dear traveler, we'll be leaving this age of prehistory. To understand more equivalent species to Horizon's machines, we'll have to go back even further, to the age of the dinosaurs. It's hard to imagine a creature so large that its mere footsteps can cause the ground to shake, but the Tyrannosaurus rex, the king of the theropod dinosaurs, was that massive. Though pop culture has presented us with less than accurate portrayals of dinosaurs in the past, the image of water rippling from some distant footfalls is not far-fetched. The T-Rex grew to a staggering size. Adults commonly reached a height of 12 feet, were up to 40 feet in length, and in weight averaged a whopping 8 tons. But if the tyrant lizard was the king of the Cretaceous, then the Thunderjaw is the king of the post-apocalypse. At 78 feet long and 29 feet tall, it would dwarf a T-Rex. Its body is encased in armor that protects its synthetic muscles and operational systems from damage, and adds to its already immense bulk. But the Thunderjaw's size is just the beginning. Besides being one of the most heavily armored machines in the world of Horizon, it's also one of the most heavily armed, though ironically, it has no actual arms. A laser cannon is housed in the center of its mouth. A lengthy belt of ammunition that runs along the underside of its neck feeds into twin cannons in its jaws, and perhaps most devastating of all, its hips are mounted with explosive disc launchers. To counteract the weight of the armaments at its head, the Thunderjaw also has a heavy tail, which maintains equilibrium and can also be used as a sweeping attack on its own. Even worse, it's difficult to even hide from a Thunderjaw, as they possess a radar array on their back and listening instruments so sensitive they can hear the twang of a bowstring, even at a distance. All of this, coupled with its extreme aggression and relative lack of weaknesses, makes the Thunderjaw one of the most dangerous and most iconic machines in the post-apocalyptic world. In a similar way, the T-Rex was likely the top predator of its own time period. Really, its sheer size meant it had nothing to truly fear save members of its own species. In the early 90s, there was some debate as to whether Tyrannosaurus was indeed a hunting predator or whether it was a lowly scavenger. Though most paleontologists always believed in the predator theory, the entire minor conflict was put to rest around 2013 when scientists discovered a T-Rex tooth lodged in the remains of a hadrosaur. Not only that, but the tooth had been healed over, indicating that the herbivore was alive when the T-Rex tried to catch it. And so the image of the T-Rex running down its prey and biting with ruthless power remains intact. In fact, when it comes to fearsome predators, even today, nothing can quite compare to the hulking form of the T-Rex, whether in flesh or machine. Now, dear traveler, if you can't get enough of the intersection between science and science fiction, be sure to check out this video. And as always, thanks for watching, and remember, you matter.